So without further ado, I'd like to introduce McGraw-Hill Education Consultant, Roberto Gloria. Roberto holds a Bachelor's of Science in Astrophysics from Texas Christian University and has over 10 years of experience teaching math and science. Let's get started, Roberto.
Our objectives today are to learn about the Common Core mathematics assessments. During this webinar, we will address some important questions concerning who is developing the new assessments, what types of items will appear, and how you can help prepare students for the assessments. But before we dive into this information, I'd like to learn a little bit more about you and your background. So, are you a teacher, principal, district curriculum administrator, or a district trainer?
Okay, so it looks like we've got 63% of teachers on, 13% district curriculum administrator, and 25% other. So if you guys
it looks like most of you are teachers.
Yeah, so if you guys are in the other category, go ahead and chat into the questions box and let us know what your function is.
All right, just one more question. How much do you already know about the new CCSS math assessments? Do you know very little, some, or a lot? All right, it looks like with half of you voting, it looks like half of you know about some. As we go through this, if you have any questions, definitely fill it in. We'll be able to answer them for you. But let's go ahead and begin with orienting ourselves with a brief overview. 2 state-led assessment consortia have received government funding to develop Common Core assessment programs. SBAC, the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium, and PARC, the Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers. These groups have been developing comprehensive assessment systems designed to measure the full range of the Common Core state standards. For grades 3 through 8 in high school, these assessments are designed to measure the depth and breadth of the Common Core state standards and college and career readiness. There will be summative, end-of-year, end-of-course assessments, as well as optional interim assessments. The assessments will begin to be administered during the 2014-2015 school year. Most states will use one of the tests developed by SBAC or PARC, but it is important to note that all developers are moving toward the same type of test. And even if your district uses a different vendor for test development, this webinar will be helpful in making the transition to a new test-taking style. Let's take a closer look at SBAC and its assessment program. During this webinar, we will focus on the assessment program developed by the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium, also known as SBAC. SBAC's program is designed to balance summative, formative, and interim assessments through an integrated system of standards, curriculum, assessment, instruction, and teacher development. Their overall goal is to ensure that all students leave high school prepared for post-secondary success in college or a career through increased student learning and improved teaching. To reach this goal, their assessment program is built on the following principles. SBAC assessments are grounded in a thoughtful, standards-based curriculum, are part of an integrated system of standards, curriculum assessment, instruction, and teacher development. Include evidence of student performance on challenging tasks that evaluate Common Core standards and 21st century learning, and are structured to continuously improve teaching and learning. This includes using computer-based technologies to adapt assessments to student levels. A system of assessment, reporting, and accountability provides useful information on multiple measures that is educative for all stakeholders. And teachers are integrally involved. A priority of Smarter Balance is teacher involvement, including the development of items and scoring guides, and the scoring of constructed response items and performance tasks. The Smarter Balance Assessment Consortium makes 4 claims regarding their assessments. Their first claim is that the assessments will require students to explain and apply concepts and interpret and carry out procedures with precision and fluency. The second claim is that students taking the assessment will be asked to solve a range of complex, well-posed problems. The third claim states that students will communicate their reasoning by constructing arguments to support reasoning and to critique the reasoning of others. And fourth and final claim is that students will analyze real-world scenarios and construct and use models to solve problems. On the screen, you can see the current member states for SBAC Consortia. There are governing states, participating states, and advisory states. Governing states have decision-making authority. Participatory and advisory states consult on test design and policy, but have no decision-making authority. Participatory and advisory states take part in pilot and field testing. Washington is the procurement state for SBAC. The comprehensive SBAC assessment program includes many features. The summative assessments use technology to administer and score the assessments, as well as deliver reports and resources. Include a variety of item types, including select response, constructed response, technology enhanced, and performance tasks. Include 2 components, both given during the final weeks of the school year: a performance-based assessment and an end-of-year assessment. Both use automated and human scoring, provide results within 2 weeks of test administration, use computer adaptive technology, offer a retake option for the end-of-year component. The comprehensive SBAC assessment program also features optional interim assessments that are computer adaptive, formative items and tasks for classroom use, and professional development and instructional resources. Let's take a look at the timeline for the development and release of the new assessments. In 2012, SBAC started writing items and performance tasks. In the spring of 2013, Smarter Balance began pilot testing and engaged teachers to write items for their upcoming field test. During this summer and throughout the fall, field tests are being conducted. Items and tasks are being reviewed, and sample items are being released. During the next spring, SBAC will conduct field tests. Then in the summer and fall of 2014, training materials will be available for the SBAC assessments, and their assessments and digital library of tools and resources will be ready for use. And finally, in the spring of 2015, the SBAC performance-based and end-of-year assessments will be ready for administration during the last few weeks of the school year. Now that we've taken a look at the assessment program, let's identify the types of items students will encounter. The new Common Core math assessments will include the following types of items: selected response items, constructed response items, technology-enhanced items and performance tasks. We will look at the examples of each of these item types. As we do, consider the depth of conceptual understanding and the procedural fluency required by your students to successfully answer the questions and complete the tasks. Also reflect the kind of instructional support and activities you can provide your students to help them prepare for the assessments. Let's begin by first looking at an example of a traditional multiple choice or selected response test question. Consider this multiple choice question that asks a student to identify the statement that is not true. This is a straightforward question that does not require higher order thinking or depth of knowledge to answer. Here, the question has been revised and now illustrates the type of selected response items that will be included on these new assessments. You can see how this question is more complex and requires a greater depth of understanding to answer successfully. Notice also that the student is asked to provide an answer for each option rather than being asked to select one answer choice. It is important to note that many of the selected response items will include multiple correct answers. SBAC's constructed response items or tasks require students to use greater analytical thinking and deeper reasoning than most selected response items. The new assessments will include a variety of these types of items that ask students not just to solve a problem, but to also construct logical response describing how they solved it. The Glencoe Math component that helps students prepare for SBAC's constructed response items are the extended response tests. This extended response test is from a Glencoe Math Course 1, Chapter 5, Integers in the Coordinate Plane. Notice how students are required to use greater analytical thinking and deeper reasoning than most selected response items. Now let's take a look at performance tasks. The Smarter Balance Assessment Program defines performance tasks as extended activities that measure a student's ability to integrate knowledge and skills across multiple standards. Performance tasks will be used to measure capacities such as depth of understanding, research skills, and complex analysis, which cannot be adequately assessed with selected response or constructed response items. Most performance tasks involve the following three main components: a stimulus such as graphs, tables, maps, figures, models, or spreadsheets; information processing utilizing tools and completing tasks; and finally a product or performance, which can include graphical displays, models, mathematical proofs, or spreadsheets. Let's walk through a sample performance task. Glencoe Math includes performance tasks similar to those that students will encounter on the Common Core assessments. This performance task, cross-country tryouts, is from Course 1, Chapter 6, Expressions. Note that there are 3 parts to the task that the students must complete. Scoring rubrics are included with each performance task. Here's another performance task: planetary play from Course 3, Chapter 1, Real Numbers. Note the stimulus, the table with information about the planet's distances from the sun. Here's the scoring rubric for this task. Glencoe Math's new tech-enhanced questions are specifically designed to harness the power of technology to facilitate the assessment of student understanding of math concepts, procedures, and problem-solving skills. One of the main ways this is done is through technology-enhanced items. There may be components of some extended response items and performance tasks that will include technology-enhanced tools. It is important to distinguish the difference between technology-enhanced items and computer-adaptive testing. Recall that computer-adaptive testing adjusts to a student's ability by basing the difficulty of future questions on previous answers, providing a more accurate measurement of student achievement, particularly for high and low-performing students. SBAC, so in a computer-adaptive testing situation, future test items are selected due to a student's response on previous items. With technology-enhanced items, students may create equations, graph functions, draw lines of symmetry, or create graphs among other technology-based tasks. Along with conceptual understanding and procedural fluency, these items also require students to comfortably and competently use technology to interact with question elements and to input responses. One of the ways we can help prepare students for technology-enhanced items is through Glencoe Math's e-assessment. Let's look at a few examples. For this question, students are asked to make a circle graph to display the given data. Here are two more examples of technology-enhanced questions from Glencoe Math e-assessment. For question 8, students use the given data provided in a table to create a graph. For question 14, students use the provided protractor tool to measure the given angle. To locate technology-enhanced questions within Glencoe Math, go to e-assessment and open the folder called Assessment Items Technology Enhanced under Question Sets. There you will find a solution set for the chapters that currently have tech-enhanced questions. Glencoe Math Virtual Manipulatives also prepare students for technology-enhanced items by familiarizing them with the process of manipulating objects on the screen. McGraw-Hill Education's Geometry Sketchpad is the world's leading software for teaching mathematics. Glencoe Math embeds Sketchpad activities within relevant lessons to give students a tangible, visible way to learn concepts and increase engagement, understanding, and achievement. In this example, students use the ray tool to construct an angle. They measure the angle, then drag points B and C while making observations about how the measure of the angle changes. This type of technology-rich activity prepares students to answer technology-enhanced questions on the Common Core Math Assessment. When considering how to prepare students for the Common Core assessments, it is important to keep in mind some of the ways they are different from traditional high-stakes assessments. Some of the item types are new and unique compared to traditional tests. These include computer-enhanced items, as well as computer-adaptive items. The computer-adaptive environment may be discouraging for some high-performing students. It's important not to give up. Another element that may be new for many students is that for some questions there can be multiple correct answers. For some items, how you solve them may be more important than the answers themselves. It is important to remind students that if they don't understand Part A completely, but know how to do Part B, go ahead and do it based on their guess in Part A. Help students prepare for the new assessments and the digital test environment by encouraging them to take practice tests, preferably on computer under time constraints. There are currently practice tests on smarterbalance.org. The practice test helps students experience taking a test online and will expose them to new item types. Read directions carefully. Look at the answer choices, all of them. Eliminate wrong answers, keeping in mind that more than one answer may be correct and that you will frequently need to select all correct answers. In a computer-adaptive environment, students should be aware that they might miss more questions than they would have previously. It's important that they continue to try and to not grow discouraged. Remind students that they might be doing much better than it feels, as if they are, especially if it is a student who is in the upper percentile. If you don't mind, I'd like to take some time for you to share any techniques you use or are planning to use to help students prepare for Common Core Math assessments. Please type your responses in the questions and we'll share these with the group.
Okay. Roberto, Greg says, incorporate higher order thinking activities and assessments.
Okay.
And Anne says, by using the practice SBAC problem, and also the Geometry Sketchpad, and also using small groups or grouping students in small groups. Shelley says you can deliver assessments online to give students practice. And Julie says, include questions on tests that have multiple correct answers.
Perfect. Those are some really, really great suggestions.
Looks like the comments are dying down. So.
Okay, so we're coming to the end of our time here, and I'd like to give you the opportunity to ask any questions that you may have. So questions have been collected throughout, and please take a second to use the chat feature and ask any additional questions. So are there any questions?
No questions yet. Okay, Roberta, it looks like no one has any questions so far. Oh, wait, one just came in. The question is, do you have any sense of the level of scores that students are getting on the McGraw-Hill assessment? There's a lot of concern about how well students will do on the SBAC. So I think that's a question about, are the McGraw-Hill assessments indicative of how students will perform on the SBAC?
So as far as the scores that the students are getting on McGraw-Hill assessments, the assessments have been created in such a way that, that they're usually set up for students and teachers are able to see a series of different reports. So usually they are used to be able to test out the concepts and see how they're doing based on standards. And as far as I haven't really heard anything as far as specifically doing a comparative analysis with the assessments and the way that they're doing on comparing it to SBAC. But as time goes on and we're able to incorporate more types of questions in there that are analogous to the SBAC questions, then we'll be able to get a better idea. But for now, with the e-assessment component, it is something that is used more within the standards, and then teachers usually use that to be able to provide reinforcement for students. I haven't seen anything as far as statistics on that.
Thanks, Bridget.
Right, and there was another question about computer adaptive. So as far as that, if you heard the term before of adaptive tests, basically what happens is that when a student answers a question based on that answer, then the questions that follow either become more difficult or simpler depending on that response. So as the student answers more correct questions, then the questions become harder for the student to be able to respond to. Any other questions? Okay, and before we conclude, I'd like to give you the opportunity to ask any questions that you may have. And while you're forming your questions, just in summary, SBAC is developing a new Common Core math assessment, and these assessments will contain selected response items, constructed response items, technology-enhanced items, and performance tasks. It will also provide optional interim assessments, and assessments will be ready for the 2014-2015 school year. You can help your students prepare for these new assessments through instructional activities and continuous assessment that focus on conceptual understanding, procedural fluency, and mathematical practices using a wide variety of activities, questions, and tasks. To further help you prepare your students, Glencoe Math provides extended response tests, performance tasks, and technology-enhanced assessment items. Thank you. Thank you for attending this webinar. You will receive a follow-up email containing a recording of today's session. If you have any additional questions, feel free to email webinars@mheducation.com. You can also take a tour and sign up to try Glencoe Math at www.mheonline.com/Glencoe Math. Have a good evening, everyone.